I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I'll take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I'll take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to PSGL. Yes, I'm finally back after an absence. I do apologise. I try my best to get on, but I have definitely... person who's not been absent is this man. I'll get my hands right, right here, Daniel. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm very, very well, thank you very much. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, wherever you are watching in the world. We are back from our break week here in PSGL, and we are headed into the last 3 rounds of the season. Now, Reese, in terms of what we should be expecting today, we've got Saudi Arabia, of course, and then in the coming weeks, we've then got Kota and Silverstone. But for Saudi, right here, right now, what are you thinking in terms of where the drivers are going to be strong, where they're going to be weak, and where we should be looking out on this particular circuit?
Well, talking of the track itself, we should be looking at particularly the straights. I feel that's going to be a strong point depending on the setup that is being produced. Vice versa, the corners around here are very long-winded, but it's mainly straight line speed. So we joke about the 0-0 wing setup, but actually this track has more likely and more promise to see something like that unfold. Low downforce is going to be today's game, but in validation heaven.
Absolutely, yes indeed. And drivers, of course, will not be wanting that in the best of worlds, and particularly the 2 drivers at the top of the championship. We've got Fionn McKee currently still leading the way, as they have done ever since the 2nd round of the season, from their teammate at McLaren, Vincent Nyquist. Now, the 2 of them are very, very close. You could potentially argue that Vincent should be leading this championship owing to the fact that they have 2 did not starts to their name, whereas Fionn has been there the whole time. But then, of course, the other side of the coin is, in order to win it, you have to be in it. And therefore, Fionn has done absolutely everything they possibly need to so far in order to get this championship in their hands. They've got essentially one hand on the trophy right now because the pair of them have started to sprint away from the rest of the field, given the mistakes for Dimitri Minic in the last couple of rounds in particular. And then, of course, we've had the resurgent Jeremy Glinner, who's been able to start getting their way back up the order, got 3 podiums on the bounce now after a pointless season in the first 5 rounds. And so therefore, they've been taking points off of those top 3 in the championship. That's then allowed them to start to come back up the order, but equally it's also meant then those closest to them, the top few in the championship, have really then fallen by the wayside ever since. The likes of Mattia Di Campo, Norbert, Roman, they've had the good result here and there, but they've not really been able to take top honours ever since, of course, Roman managed it back in Suzuka.
Yeah, and it's definitely shaping things up quite nicely. It's getting close, and especially as we mentioned, three rounds left, and it's all to play for, and it's anyone's game critically in this final 3 races. So going to Saudi Arabia, this could be interesting because it's with the races we have left, with Saudi Arabia here, we got then Kota and then Silverstone. They progressively, I would say, get harder. Saudi Arabia, probably one of the easier tracks, being more straight line based. Then you've got Kota with the S section, making it a bit more tricky. And then you've got the likes of Silverstone, a known challenging track itself. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for sure as Joris starts his lap.
Absolutely, you can see they're taking that final corner, not necessarily the racing line we would expect on a hot lap or on a race, but to start the lap, just taking the absolute longest route they possibly can to build up as much speed as they go across the line. We're now headed through turns 2 and 3 right here, and then up towards turn number 4 just ahead. This circuit got more corners than any other on the Formula 1 calendar, and the fastest circuit in Formula 1 as well. And of course, we were able to enjoy the sights and sounds of the fantastic battles that the circuit has thrown up in its 2 years in Formula 1 so far. Of course, this year we've had the likes of the Alpine drivers, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, fighting one another hard. And then in last year's competition, of course, it was Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen. But here, right now, we've got the first driver on a lap in the field, Joris, in that Williams car, headed through the 2nd sector at the moment. As it's now now transitioned over to the 2nd sector. And now, as we go through these areas here, this DRS section, where technically it's not a straight at all. We've got some corners here before you then dive back on the brakes, and too deep into the corner there. They're in the right gear. 6th gear is the one you want to be on. Luckily for them, they've not invalidated there, so they can continue on. Rear wing open once more. Down towards this final turn we go. And through that second sector in particular, it's a bit more tricky to get the pass done because you go through different corners and different curved straights, if you will. That last section a bit more easy to get the overtake done. But as we say all of that, despite the fact it was not an invalidated lap, they come in anyway, and that will be that. So instead, we turn our attention to the driver currently in 18th place, that being Vincent Nyquist, as Robert Dinulescu sets a fastest lap.
Yeah, Joris actually clipped the wall earlier on in the lap, so that's why he's dipped into the pits. And there's a few drivers actually dipping into the pits, not feeling confident with their lap, as it seems like Vincent Nyquist is feeling confident, puts himself second. Not bad from the McLaren driver, but his teammate Theon also pitting. So this track already sparking up a bit of ooh and hoo-has, as drivers aren't able to put in the lap times. More notably, we're on Norby. We've got the lovely livery we saw in Italy. It's lovely to see that, as Norby puts the Ferrari in 6th fastest and does it fairly proud, I'd say.
I would say so. It's not a bad first effort, and Norby, of course, we've seen go to a pretty good qualifying position in the last race, in particular, getting inside the in the top 5, I believe, if memory serves. And then went on to have a very strong race, finishing second in that race, and then the previous round at Imola, of course, then being a third place as well. So it's been a good resurgent form for Norby. However, definitely more impressive from the driver who has currently got our provisional pole position, that being Jeremy Glinner. They have been able to get themselves 2 out of the last 3 events a win. And then, of course, third last time out with the pole position as well. They've had pole in the last 3 races. A real late-season surprise, really, I think, for that Red Bull driver. However, right now, we're on board with Niklas, a driver who has, to my memory, not stepped into the car this season. So one of the reserves, unless I'm wrong. Please correct me if I am, Reese. But around the final corner, they come. And up towards the line. Now, this is going to be interesting here because they're doing this on a set of tyres they've already used. So they've probably had an invalidated lap, come across the line, and it's 1.1 seconds slower. So that's a great deal slower than everybody else who set a time so far. And it's just more proof that in this particular game, you can't really do a second push lap on the soft tyres, no matter which venue and therefore which compound you are using.
Yeah, and he even put a purple middle, which if you take a look at the sector itself, is fairly straight lined. You know, it ends at turn 12, you then go around turn 13, so that's one of the major corners. 14, 15, 16, 17, fairly flat out. Okay, 16, you have to brake a little bit. Then through 18, 19, 20, 21, all flat out. So a lot of Sector 2 is quite straight, so it gives you the question, is Nicola... Oh, Alex Johnson on stream and on the screen goes and spins, and critically, I was on the exit of turn 17 as well, so that's not good. And it seems like Daniel, either my connection or Daniel's connection has gone horribly wrong, so I do apologise. Make sure that stream is still running fine. Daniel, can you still hear me? I genuinely cannot hear my co-commentator right now. Seems like the stream is still running, it still is fine, so we'll hopefully try and get back to Daniel when he does reconnect. Meanwhile, we watch Jerry Van Bussel on his push lap as he enters into the second sector. He does a purple first, so clearly the downforce set for these windy corners from the get-go. We're noticing these drivers taking a bit of a wider line, carrying the speed through turn 13 before launching out through the S's. This is where we saw Alexander Johansson spin, but Jerry Van Bussel keeping it nice and neat through the S as we go. And he is putting down a good lap time. Is it purple middle? It's purple middle. This is looking good for Jerry Van Bussel. He is a contender within this championship. I do need to double check if he's still got a fight or his foot in the door to win this championship. Down into the final corner, turn 27, 27 corners on this track. Needs to keep it away from the wall. You'll notice he'll drift to the left. Take a nice inside line. Is it going to be a 127? It's a 127.4. Jerry Van Bussel going a 10th quicker than the other drivers. I'm still not hearing Daniel. So I am going to see if he's messaged me. As he has gone extremely quiet. Theon is on his lap. He's coming through the second sector. He's about to encroach the third sector. Here we go across the line. It's a purple middle. So Theon also looking decent and strong. As Daniel is in the call. My co has magically disappeared. I don't know if he can hear me or if I can hear them. But Theon around in the final corner. Theon has been prominent. He didn't put it in the first lap. So the round one of the qualifying, he didn't put in a lap. He's decided not to go for it, but he puts himself third fastest, and both McLaren third and fourth holding out the second row, but he's still nearly 2/10 off Jerry Van Bussel, who has put in an absolutely brilliant time as he's gone into the wall. Critically, Theon has not put himself out of this qualifying session, but he has broken his front wing and it'll be a bit longer. As unfortunately Dan Gilligan is desynced from the session, so we're going to hopefully try and get him back later on, and we're going to enjoy his company later. Don't worry, your seat is still warm and cozy, as Maceo is trying to get around this track quite quickly. He's invalidated, but he's looking for... basically, the idea is to get another chance to go in the pit stop and retry once again. Days Rumbus, I don't feel this is it might be a push. I don't feel it really is a push lap from him. Yeah, he's way off the pace, but 6th fastest, and as a man who has raced against Days Rumbus, he has definitely shown that in Tier 5, he is a contender. He's one to keep an eye on. He likes a little battle, as we're going to stay with him. We're going to stay on board with Days Rumbus as we get our hot lap through him. Shift all the way down to third before keeping the gear quite low through turn 2. Not common that you see staying into lower gears in this game. Normally you shift up quite quickly. Through the S's we follow through, and it's going to be a nice flowing, shifting up through almost every corner. Round through this one, lift and downshift before swinging it back in, and it's easy to invalidate onto turn 10 before you go through 11 and 12. Two little short ones. Now you swing it back into turn 13. It's long. He's not taking this wider line we've seen a couple of drivers do. Stick it nice and clean and then follow it through turn 14. 15 through 16, shift down quickly, power it back on through 17 and 18. Again, straight line speed is going to be your friend, and as he comes up to sector 2, is it going to be a purple sector 2 as Jeremy Gilliner goes for 127.2. It's purple middle for Days Rumbus, so the lead has switched between the top two. Days Rumbus is looking competitive, but is it going to be competitive enough for the front row, or will it be good enough for the second? Can he improve? He head round corner 27, get my words out eventually, come close to the left side, cut as much as you can, and it's good for the second row, as it is going to be 3/10, nearly 4/10 off the leader, but a brilliant lap from Days Rumbus. Now, I've seen Dan has joined. Dan, are you back yet?
I am.
Hey.
I hope you can hear me. There we go.
Hear you.
Yeah, who would have thought that living in the capital city of the United Kingdom, my internet doesn't work properly? It's obviously it's so rural here that it's impossible to get a reliable connection to me. But oh well. So yes, there we are. Then I've been able to keep abreast of what's going on thanks to your marvelous commentary, young man. So we will crack on, I guess. Currently got Alex Berry on screen, of course, who's set a 128.2 so far, which is just about a second or so off of the pace. So now, on their current lap, We will see whether or not they're going to be able to get themselves back up into a more competitive position. Alex, of course, has had some very competitive qualifying sessions the last couple of rounds, but then in the races, they've just been a bit unlucky, really, versus then other drivers in combat, especially, and then things like safety car and things like that coming out at the wrong times for them. So hopefully this time we can see a good qualifying from them and then a good race as well. A bit sort of like what we've seen in terms of that resurgence for the likes of Jeremy Glinner, of course, and then the success for Roman and others. We're seeing some late season renaissances for these drivers. So as they come around the final turn here, Alex Berry powers towards the line. And what are we going to see? That being said, they go very far over to left and they go into the pits. Dear oh dear, they're just teasing us today.
They are. It seems like they're not getting the confidence around this track, and they're knowing what lap time it is. We're currently at 1:27.2, so they know if it's not close to that 1:27, they're not going to bother. And we technically got, how many? I'm going to do my maths very quickly. I didn't do maths for like a few years. From 11th down, call it that, 12th down, they've all not set a lap. And it's a mixture of invalidations and a mixture of not feeling confident. Tell you who is feeling confident. Vincent Nyquist is putting in 2 purples. He's put a purple first, purple middle. He's looking confident and he's looking powerful. Is it enough? No, it's only good enough for P2 and still 2 tenths off the fastest lap.
Yeah, it's, I mean, this has been this late season renaissance that we see for Jeremy Glinner. Last 3 events, last 3 poles, all in their hands. When it had, before that, really been a bit of a shootout between the McLaren drivers exclusively, with then the occasional appearance from the likes of, say, Dmitry Minich, who, of course, yet to set a valid lap time in this session, as has nearly half the grid. Alexander Johansson as well, a driver who performed very well last time out, still yet to set a time. Kinty, Yannick as well, Maceo, Daniel Rocker, who's stepping in for the first time, I believe, this season. If not, then I apologise. And Elliott, of course, who's been absent for a round or 2. And jumping back into that AlphaTauri seat as well. So we see here ADT, Ailfin, another driver who, like myself, the victim of connection issues around about the same time that I disappeared as well. So they've gotten back into the lobby. They're now back out on circuit trying to set themselves a lap time. Up towards the line they go, cutting it absolutely as fine as possible with that final turn and up to P4. That's a good rebound after technical issues as Norby retires from the session. They've done so in the pit lane, so it's not a crash or anything, but yeah, there we go. Norby will not set any time to elevate them higher than 7th, or now 8th, as the case may be, as Alexander Johansson sets a time for P2.
That's interesting for P2, but yeah, P5, the Aston Martin putting in a purple first and a purple second, so clearly he's lost out, most likely in the final corner, critically where the most time is lost. So, interestingly, I feel that's where a lot of drivers are being caught out. Daniel Rocker, currently in P15, has not set a lap time. His lap is currently good, but it's not wowing with any purples just yet. But again, another driver we're seeing taking this wider line through the exit as Daniel rockets through as he's about to... he's on the second sector actually, so he's going to try and rocket through the fastest of the sector through turn 2021, coming up to 22 here, and it's a purple. That's looking confident, and now he's got to navigate the final sector. This is where we're going to see a few overtakes. It's going to be down into turn 27, so keep an eye here as they run behind another driver, dive one down the inside or the outside. You can see them through both. Round 27 we go. Through to the finish line. Is it promising? Is it good for the Haas driver? Daniel Rocker comes up to the line only for P10. So again, purple middles, but no purple lasts.
Absolutely, yeah. So this could just be the symptom of what even Max Verstappen himself ended up finding out in the inaugural race last year, of course, where towards the end of the lap, because this track has got its fair share of straights, of course, but lots of corners as well, a lot of braking zones, a lot of areas where the tyres are put under a great deal of stress. We're promptly seeing here drivers where their tyres are just falling over a cliff as they get towards the end of the lap. So then that final corner in particular, where it's a much slower speed corner, you need to have good turn in, good grip. You end up just finding that drivers are just losing it ever so slightly, having a little bit of a step out on oversteer or something like that, which is then enough for them to lose the time. Because, of course, as we can see here, the top 13 drivers all separated by near enough half a second. If you go to the top 12 drivers, it's less than half a second, of course. So it's all very close. At the top, though, Jeremy Glinner unthreatened by Alexander Johansson as Dazed Rhombus. There you go, the driver you were gassing up earlier on there. Reese gets up into P2. And then Jeremy Glinner on a lap that has been invalidated. So if anyone's able to beat their time, they will beat Jeremy to pole position. But right now, I'm not sure anybody is. Right now, then, Vincent Nyquist has retired from the session. We've got Jerry Van Bussel coming up to the line now in the Williams. They go up to P4, so it's an improvement, but it's not enough. And Fionn has also improved, managed to get above their teammate and championship rival, but not able to get there. And Memento jumps up to P3. That's a brilliant time from the Mercedes driver who's been flying under the radar a little bit for us there. Joris up to P6, so a good result for the Williams boys. And in terms of then those left to go, we've got Daniel Rocker goes into the pits. We've got then Nicholas in P15. They also go into the pits now. And then Maceo, the only other driver on circuit at the moment, they had an invalidated lap. So they come across the line and finish their session. That's everybody done. So rundown of your qualifying order then. Jeremy Glinner just by 0.03 of a second manages to hold on to pole position. We've then got Dazed Rhombus lining up for the first time this season on the front row alongside. Then from third down we have Memento, Alexander Johansson, Jerry Van Bussel, Joris, Fionn McKee, Vincent Nyquist, Dimitri Minic, Alex Berry, Ali Finn, Norby, Daniel Rocker, Robert Dinulescu, Niklas, Elliot Noren, and then we'll get back to them in just a few moments' time when that's all back on the screen after all the cinematics and such. But yeah, there we are then. That was one of our more interesting qualifying sessions, I think it's fair to say, given that, yeah, those usual suspects, the two McLaren boys in particular, not up at the front of the field. So in terms of then everybody else, Elliot, as we say, down in P16, then we've got Maceo, Yannick, and Kinty all failing to set a time. So there we are, bottom four, not getting to show their overall pace. And I would even go so far as to say that Niklas probably didn't get a good lap in at all there, given they're 1.5 seconds off the pace. Everybody else, 0.6 or less off of the pole position time.
Big up Dazed Rhombus though. I am so glad to see that name up near the top. We all know I've been gassing him for this entire season, but he deserves it. He full well deserves it. That man kept beating my ass every single race. He is that good. So good to see him up there, and it's good to now we can finally see that man fight. And I'm desperately looking forward to see what happens, and especially on a track like this.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. It's always good when we can get some new suspects, if you will, up into the top. Oh, and it's put me in a hass for some reason. Oh dear. Well, that's unexpected.
Oh, you actually driving?
Yeah, it's put me in a hass car. Yes.
Oh no! Well, yeah, I can see your little name on the garage. Apparently, you're now racing. Hey, how does it feel? You're on the track.
I mean, it's wonderful. Why is this game like this? Right, okay. There's no option for me to retire, so I guess I'm gonna have to.
Oh, you gotta be careful, because if you accidentally, what position are you in? Can you see what position you're in?
Well, I assume I'm dead last.
But there were
on the steering wheel, it says P20.
Okay, so technically you can sit there, retire, and, you know, hopefully get into spectator mode that way, and then all is good. But hey, you're gonna be.
Well, I don't know. Let's make an executive decision here. Should I start the race then immediately retire, or should I just quit to main menu now and then rejoin?
I say start the race, retire, because then you're guaranteed to have a spectator perspective, and then we apologise to everybody if it causes a safety car. Or
yes, that sounds like
just park the car to the side and then retire it. That is probably the better way. But as I do have perspective, we are going to be getting into this race. We will not have a formation lap, to my knowledge, as there we go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. We wait, as they turn off, and we are heading underway in Saudi Arabia. And there's a little hat of Dan Gilligan at the back as Jeremy will hold the lead, but Days Rhombus is under attack by the Mercedes of Momentum, and Momentum getting a brilliant start, able to get second place quite early on. This is phase 1 of racing. This is critically where you want to gain the positions the most. Jerry Van Bussel trying to find his way up. He does get a bit shaky behind Alex Johansson, but we're able to maintain. But now he has his teammate of Joris right up the rear end, waiting for the opportunities. They're going to make a lunge into turn 13, the real opening and opportunity, the first of the overtaking zones if they decide to go for it. But they decide to stay behind, play safe, as that is going to be Dimitri Minik, very strong contender, going to get overtaken by Fionn McKee as Fionn finds that early overtake on the exit of turn 13, going through the second sector. So critically, that McLaren went, no, I'm going to play aggressive early and try and fight the best that I can.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant start for Fionn. Of course, they've now got one car between them and their championship rival, and also they're now ahead of third place in the championship as well, that being Dimitri Minic. So, for the McLaren driver, things are looking pretty good as they now start to look at the back of Joris hungrily to think about getting some positions made there. In terms of tyre strategies, well, as we see, they're going up the inside, goes Fionn McKee into the final corner. They're alongside with the Williams now, and it's a drag race all the way down to turn number 1. Let's watch then as they go all the way down there. They're now being followed through by Dimitri Minic. They're being followed through by their teammate Vincent Nyquist. Who's going to come out on top in the end? It's Fionn who comes out on top. They get a bit of a tap up the back from Dimitri Minic there. It's not the first time we've seen that this season. But critically, Joris manages to fend off Vincent Nyquist. That's now 2 cars between the championship leader and second place.
Joris is so unlucky, and critically he loses 2 positions. So he is now in his head going, no, this is not what I wanted off the start. And that's going to drain him dramatically. But for the likes of Fionn and especially Dimitri Minic, you know, Dimitri capitalized on a situation and now he's put himself into such a good position, chasing Fionn and keeping up the pace. Up ahead, Jeremy's pulled himself a second gap. He's broken the DRS train from Momentum, who had then Momentum behind him. Still has Days Rhombus. So Days Rhombus, yes, he's lost 1 position, but this is one of his best finishing positions on lap 2. So he is in a strong place right now, and he can and potentially get a podium if he keeps up a good performance. Now we're running into the phase. Now I haven't used this expression with you, Daniel, but there are 3 phases as Vincent Nyquist will get past Joris. So Joris again losing another place. There are 3 phases. Phase 1, the race start. Phase 2, as Jerry Van Bussel is going to go side by side. You know what? You take this. I'll tell you later.
Excellent, good stuff. So yes, the battle for P4 then is on. Jerry Van Bussel side by side with Alexander Johansson as they go down into turn number 1. They're side by side. Johansson crucially has the unblocked line ahead of them, with then the Alfa Romeo blocking the way for Jerry Van Bussel. Days Rhombus is completely dazed at this point. They've lost several positions in that first couple of corners. They're just being beaten up by everybody around them, and now they're directly in front of their teammate Dimitri Minic, and I suspect that there may be some damage on the Williams of Jerry Van Bussel. They went right up into the wall, made contact with the wall there, as Jerry then gets a time penalty for extending track limits just a bit too much and gaining a position on turn 1 through corner cutting. So there we are then. That's probably that position gained on Days Rhombus there. And now as they head round the hairpin up towards the second sector we go. And it's, well, already inside the second sector, in fact. It's then a change in that leading party there. So Jeremy still in the leads, now by 2 seconds the gap to Momentu, who then leads Alexander Johansson by half a second. Then Jerry Van Bussel, Fionn McKee, then Days Rhombus, Dimitri Minic, Vincent Nyquist, Norby making their way up the order with their medium tyres versus everybody else on hards, all the way down then to Nicholas, who's on mediums. And then at the back of the field, just overtaken by Elliott, is Maceo on the soft tyres. So not the way that Mercedes
Dimitri
will be
making his way through. Dimitri making his way through. He's found his way past his teammate, but critically, it's going to be a nearly 3 abreast going into turn 27, and Vincent is not wasting any more time as well, as Vincent's going to try and get past Days Rhombus. So from P2 in qualifying, Days Rhombus has fallen down to P8, and critically, this is not his day. As you can see, Dimitri trying to fend off Vincent. He knows Vincent will capitalize on any opportunity opportunity, and critically, there goes Dimitri spinning on turn 2, allowing Vincent to go through. The McLarens up to P5 and P6, so from a terrible qualifying, both McLarens in a position of power, and that is crazy to see.
Absolutely, yeah. Then just to add insult to injury there, Dimitri gets a time penalty for cutting corners and extending the track a bit too much, as the same is then dished out to Roberts as well. And that was, for Dimitri's part at least, I was just on board with them before I switched to the main action that we're seeing here with Jerry Van Bussel. But yeah, that was all just because overheated tyres from spinning the car around, then getting right on the throttle to try and get the car going again. And then they were just trying to push the car a bit too much, and unfortunately that then means that they end up losing out, end up going too far off the circuit, and as a result, there we saw it there. Purple second sector for Jerry Van Bussel there as they chase on after Alexander Johansson and Memento. And this will be interesting here because Jerry has had a great deal of pace so far this season, but they've had a great deal of bad luck as well. And now, in a race with a car in front, they've got the inside line headed into the corner. Alexander Johansson has to take the long way round. And now on exit there, it looks like a good bit of traction for the AlphaTauri there. And they are now right on the back of the Mercedes in front. The Mercedes then moving to the middle of the road. Jerry goes to the inside. And now, will they have an attempt on Alexander Johansson as well? No, just the Mercedes. Up onto the podium goes Jerry Van Bussel. But Alexander Johansson just ahead gets a 3-second time penalty. So, really, at this point, we're looking at Memento and Fionn McKee being in that podium position so far, especially in the case of Jerry Van Bussel, because, of course, they're carrying a 5-second penalty, which they will have to serve at their next pit stop.
Yeah, and that critically will drop him down the field. All that momentum that Jerry Van Bussel's doing right now, yes, is critical because he needs to focus on that. He needs to gain as far ahead as he can and then play the pit stop game, which we're still a long way off. We're still a long way off phase 2, which is what I was going to try and explain to you. Phase 2, pit stop phase. This is where we start to see drivers that come into the pits, and this is where the chaos. So we start to see overtakes happening just a little bit earlier from the pit stop phase, and then also at the exit, you start to see them fight again. Otherwise, normally, and again, I know this is more of a tier 2, tier 1 strategy I'm talking here, but you will start to see drivers then calm down and focus on the long game, preserving tyres and along those lines. And then come phase 3, right at the end of the race, is where the chaos starts. We'll be seeing some more action roughly lap 24 for phase 3.
There we are then, pit stop updates for you there from Reese, and into the final turn. I'm just watching here, a bit further down the order, the closest battle we've got on circuit at the moment, that being between Ali Finn and Yannick for P12. And the two drivers very close indeed, going down into turn number 1 here. It would have been closer if not for the fact that Ali Finn had then just lost a little bit of time, headed into the final turn, locked up, went a bit too deep, and as a result they've missed out there. But then a big slide from the Alpine in front. That's given the Aston Martin that opportunity. Oh, and unfortunately for them, they're not quite able to just get the legs on them down into the braking zone for the next turn. And then a big oversteer moment for the Aston Martin as well. That's then allowed the Ferrari of Kinty through, and they get up into P13. The Alpine's round. That's the Alpine of Yannick round, and they tumble down the order. And that just happened just after they'd been on television. So there we go. The pressure got to them, clearly. Yeah. And that's then 2 positions gained in as many corners for Kinty there. So they now are on the bubble towards points. But they're going to have a bit of work to do now because they've got to catch up to the back of a DRS train. So they have all that work to do, whilst then Ali Finn behind them is within their DRS. So they are going to have one eye on the track in front and one eye in their mirrors.
I didn't realise we were so much pressure to these drivers. I thought we were quite relaxed people, you know? Didn't put the pressure on them, but clearly the pressure of the camera making them spin. But again, another driver with unenforced error.
P2.
Yeah, P2.
Look at P2.
Going for it. That will be Jerry Van Bussel taking second place. He ain't waiting around. He's going for it at all. That massive tank slapper, putting him massively out of the race. And now, look at him dropping down to P4. So all that momentum now lost, going now down to P5. So will Vincent capitalize on this, as well as Jerry Van Bussel try to dive one down the inside as he nearly takes out the McLaren. And that was a very, very desperate attempt. And you can see from the way he's driving right now, that's a defeatist drive as he's making another mistake. He taps into Days Rumbus. He's not got the grip. He's not finding anything. Jerry Van Bussel's frustrated. He's driving angrily right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a driver who is flustered and doesn't really... Oh, and there's a Mercedes in the wall there as we go past on board with the Williams. Now, I wonder which one that is. That may well be Maceo, who's there. Yeah, it is. Maceo in the wall. Only starts getting going again now, as there's a car now starting to come up to go past them. I believe that was one of the Alpines. And yeah, that's well, that's bizarre to be just parked up on the side there. We can see they've got no front wing, of course, but yeah, rather than just continuing off racing line, I'm not sure why they didn't do that as the field came through. But there we are then. Their race practically run at this point. They're being over a lap down at this stage on the majority of the field. So that's a shame for them. Jeremy Glynn is still 2.3 seconds ahead of then the likes of Alexander Johansson down in P2. And if we take a look at this battle here further up the order, we're watching on board for this battle for around about sort of P7 down to P10 here. Between all these drivers, we've got Alex Berry going wide and deep in the final corner there. That's then got their DRS open, but right behind them, waiting for any mistake to capitalise upon it, is the Haas of Daniel Rocker. As they head down towards turn number 1, though, it looks like there's a bit more straight line speed on that Alpine, but they go too deep into the corner. That's then allowed the Haas go straight round their outside, and they've got to recover to the position down below, down to P10, the last points paying position. But then, of course, to their inside is then Joris, who thought about it, but then tucked back in behind sensibly as driving the normal racing line was Alex Berry there, not taking any prisoners, not giving any space whatsoever there to the Williams behind.
So, yeah, turn 4, you don't want to go side by side through that. It's a full course safety car. He's in because Dmitry Minnik is in the wall. Dmitry Minnik, a very strong racer.
Virtual safety car we've got there.
Yeah, so the strong racer in the wall. And this track, well, I said we're going to progressively get harder with tracks over the last 3 races. I didn't realise how much of a struggle Saudi Arabia would be to most of these drivers. Their setup is clearly too much straight line speed for a lot of these drivers. Oversteer and understeer, critically screwing over a lot of these drivers. And then also the fact that we've got this straight line speed, we've got the DRS trains happening as we go green once again, catching a lot of people out. And who's going to capitalize the most on this virtual safety car? Even though you're supposed to be staying the same, nobody's really going to gain, as the leaders will head round the final corner. And it seems to be Fionn looks to be the strongest contender right here. Coming into turn 1, he lines up an attack. Is he going to make the move down to turn 1? Yes, he is. He's going to look to the inside of the Mercedes, as the Mercedes caught the eye of the McLaren. He has, but the switchback of the McLaren will favour Fionn, and he's got to make this move before turn 4, and critically, he does.
Yeah, brilliant bit of racecraft there from Fionn, just putting the Mercedes under pressure, not necessarily going for the mother of all dives into turn number 1, and then just making sure they were offline. They had to go defensive, and then the cutback there was some brilliant bit of driving. Brilliant bit of driving there. And now, as they head down towards the big, long, left-handed hairpin, it is championship leader up into P3, making some fantastic progress so far in this race. I wonder where they might end up in the end here. Now, we've got a 2-second gap from Jeremy Glynn to Alexander Johansson, who's the next target on Fionn's list. And if Fionn's able to get by the Alpha Tower in front, will they start to close in, perhaps, on Jeremy Glynn? And now, overall, the pair of them are closing in. It's now gone down to 1.8 seconds over the course of this explanation of mine. But now, as we head down towards one of the next braking zones, we're through this section of the circuit now where you've got a lot of DRS areas, 3 of course on this circuit, and only 2 detection, oh no, sorry, I lied, 3 detection zones, 1 for each sector. And there we are then, headed down towards that final turn. It looks like advantage now going more towards the likes of the Mercedes and the sister McLaren behind, and Fionn not really able to close up all that much on Alexander Johansson. Now, as they head down the start-finish straight, we've now got our sights on instead the other McLaren, this being a Fionn behind, and sorry, a Vincent behind rather, and now they move to the inside. They get alongside the Mercedes. This Mercedes, who's clearly struggling in a straight line versus the McLarens, loses another position, and that then means it's championship battle on between the pair once more, with Fionn ahead of Vincent. And the pressure once again back on Fionn here as they head through the first sector, down towards the end of it here, down towards that ultimate hairpin. And things not looking good at all in terms of them trying to stretch out a massive lead on their championship rival.
Yeah, Fionn made that look, no, sorry, Vincent made that look super easy in the McLaren. played it patiently, didn't use the RS down into turn 27, but then activated it quite early to give himself that boost all the way up to turn 1. So he was committed to the overtake into turn 1, and if he hadn't successfully done that, I think there would have been collision if he had tried anything else. I want to draw attention a little bit back now. Just gonna bring it back to P7, where Daniel Rocker is leading this train. He's worked his way up. He's put himself into this position, as he is 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds behind Days Rumbus, who is running his own little race now in P6. But this train runs all the way down to P13. So battle for, what was that, 4 points, is it? Is getting a bit spicy right now.
Certainly is, and it's very close between these top two in that train. You can see there Daniel Rocker headed through the final corner absolutely beautifully, but so did the Ferrari, and the Ferrari crucially has DRS, whereas the Haas does not. And you can see they're gaining and gaining and gaining. They move to the inside. There's a little bit of a drift there from the Haas as well, but up the inside goes the Ferrari and locks up, goes a bit too deep, almost gets their front wing taken off by the Haas, taking the normal racing line. And now down towards turn 4 they will go, and under pressure then from the Alpine behind. But luckily for the Ferrari there's not been any loss of position. They've now just got to gather themselves back up again and try it once more on this lap or the next. But their advantage is waning at this stage because, of course, they are the only one in this group, except for Nicholas down at the back of the group there, who's actually over 5 seconds off the back of the group, is on the medium tyres. Everybody else on the hards, so at this point, Norby really needs to get this position taken and then start to tear off into the distance as much as they can, as much as those mediums will allow at this stage, because of course now we're going to start to get towards that crossover point where the hards will be as fast as the mediums at this stage in their degradation. So Norby's going to need to really get the hammer down, try and get past, try and get a gap, try and break the DRS, and then try and get as much running and clean air as they possibly can once they get onto their hard tyres later on. But you can see through these corners here, they're sticking onto the back of the Haas quite well, managing to get a gap down smaller than that behind them. And now the DRS open once more as we head up towards that final turn. The Ferrari moves to the outside this time, now ducks into the inside, sold them the dummy, up the inside in the final turn, and now on to the start-finish straight they go. I believe they will have DRS again. There we go, it opens up on the Ferrari's rear wing, and now down towards turn number 1, they will have this advantage all the way, and then through the tight and twisty bits later on in the lap, they will have the advantage of those medium tyres as well. Great move from the Ferrari.
Absolutely sterling move from the Ferrari, definitely keeping it calm, cool, played it patient, and getting the move when he needed it. Critically, we're on lap 12. We're starting to head into pit stop window. So Norby, you said and correctly mentioned, he's got to get through this pack. He needs to start pulling away a little bit because critically, he will be the first driver to pit with the medium tyres. So he needs to get ahead, pull away, pit, and put in a good lap time. Because lap 12 is probably the earliest we'll see drivers coming in to change their tyres. And who's going to be the first one to make that move? The front runners are looking strong. They're looking like they could go on for a bit longer and possibly see them around maybe lap 16. Might see them in. Possibly, if they want to feel risky, push to lap 20. There goes Alexander Johansson. No fault of his own. Puts him in the wall. And that was... wow. Out of nowhere. Alexander Johansson in the wall, meaning Fionn McKee and Vincent Nyquist both critically on the podium.
And a full safety car has now been called as well.
Oh, it's double stacking McLaren. Double stack McLaren.
Yeah, that's going to massively hurt Vincent Nyquist with how close the gaps are behind. We see then they go into the box. In goes Fionn first of all, gets the tyres changed, then sets off. Now it's all down to Vincent and the McLaren crew. Now, how quickly can they get that car turned around? As it turns out, pretty quickly, but not quick enough. Days Rhombus then, will they get out ahead? No, they don't. They just slot in behind. So overall then, the McLaren has lost one position, and that's to Memento in front. And then, of course, Joris as well. Oh, yes, Joris, in fact, has gotten out ahead, but they've then stuck it in the wall. So that's unfortunate for Joris. You can't make this stuff up, can you, really? You get the massive benefit of the McLaren having to double stack. You get that extra position on them, and then you go ahead and lose it on pit exit and go straight into the wall. That's a massive shame for Joris. Alexander Johansson then tumbling down the order as their retired car gets passed by then those who are running around, that's going to take some time then for Elliott and Maceo to get past them, but they will do eventually, being a lap or so down. Yellow flag penalty, 5-second penalty there for one of those cars, as clearly there's been an issue with the safety car delta, as there often is in this game. But now, all of a sudden, that great big 2-second gap that we were talking about before between Jeremy Glinner and Fionn McKee, that Fionn actually had started to chip away into after the incident for Alexander in that brief period we had before the safety car was called. Now it becomes a bit more exciting. Now we've got a real proper fight on our hands, because up until that point it would have been Fionn at the head of a DRS train, being constantly attacked, having to look in their mirrors and not really focus on catching up to the car in front. But now the Red Bull is going to be under some serious pressure here from the drivers behind.
He would be on serious pressure, but at the same time, Jeremy's also pitted at the same time as the rest of the drivers. So, yes, there's pressure, but at the same time, no. There is no pressure to him because they're all running these mediums. The only one who isn't on mediums is Norby. Norby, probably critically, yes, he's in P6, but he's the one losing out here. That being said, lap 13 for mediums is going to stretch these tyres out quite a bit, so it's going to be risky. As I just realised, Maceo is actually on 6-lap-old softs and has not pitted, as there's a Williams of Joris still trundling down the lot. But this has definitely spiced up this little fight, shall we say.
Absolutely, yes, indeed, and it's good to see that we've been able to get everybody back into close formation once more. We've got just over 10 laps to go. I'd imagine by the time the safety car comes in, it will be 10 laps to go, and we've got now this sprint to the finish. Now, I reckon medium tyres that will have had a couple of laps under safety car running, probably not going to be too worn, and I would wager could probably get to the end of the race. The real proof in that particular pudding, though, is going to be the likes of Norby. Norby on those hard tyres, the only driver in the field on hards at this point, having made their mandatory pit stop now under the safety car period, got those hard tyres on, which has elevated their position as well versus then the rest of the field too. And this is going to be interesting, because in the initial phase here, they are going to be... Oh, and there's a great big incident there. There's been a crash between multiple drivers, which has then handed out many 2 time penalties there, 2 5-second penalties for severe collisions between drivers there, and then
drive-through penalty for Maceo. I know he's at the back, he's a lap down. But
so I saw Maceo's name coming up there in amongst those drivers as well, in terms of those having the penalties handed out. So someone has crashed into Maceo.
Oh, I know what Maceo's doing. I'm sorry, I've just realised Maceo is creeping his way up to the front of the grid. So this is something you'll see some drivers do who have been lapped. So there you go. So he's crept his way up. Technically, you're not supposed to do that, but because the game doesn't have a system to allow lapped drivers to go through, he's just creeping his way up. Now you're supposed to do it where in a braking zone you just jump ahead, okay? And this is how I used to do it. You get to the front, come the safety car, near the end, it will eventually let you go and you can go away without ignoring yellow flags. So that's what he was trying to do, but I feel he tangled up with somebody.
I think so as well. Yeah, driver's not expecting it, and as a result, he's now carrying 2 drive-through penalties. He's got a second one on there just after passing the safety car. So sure, they may well be back on the lead lap and maybe in a position where they might be able to then catch the queue, but realistically it's probably going to be safety car in at the end of this lap. They've only just passed it relatively recently, so they've now got to get all the way around the lap here, get a new set of boots on, and then get onto the back of the pack, all in time for the safety car restart, which with the greatest respect in the world to them, I don't think is going to happen. And then, of course, once that safety car has come in and everybody gets going again, they're going to have to serve those drive-through penalties, of which they've got 2, and they've got to serve them within a certain number of laps, otherwise they then become time penalties. And if you get too many time penalties, or over a certain amount of time penalties in the number of seconds, I believe it's over 30 seconds, then you get disqualified from the race. So this, I think... whilst, yes, it's gotten Maceo technically back on the lead lap, technically now able to compete again with everybody else, they've got over a minute and a half still to get onto the back of the car in front, and they've got all those other things to worry about in the meantime as well. This is going to be a task, I think it's fair to say.
it's going to be a task for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. It's going to be interesting to, you know, see if he can stay on that lead lap. But Maceo down in 13th isn't of concern necessarily. And there is no offense to Maceo. We love him. We love all the drivers that raced today. Every single one who put their time in to sacrifice their day to race for us for the entertainment of streaming. We will focus more at the front because this is where the championship is, where it lies. Fionn critically having a driver plastered between his rival. Now that, I know we mentioned it at the start of the safety car period as the safety car comes in this lap, but that's going to make it a little bit harder for Vincent off the get-go because this is, as I mentioned, the 3 phases. Phase 1 was the start, phase 2 is is the pit stops, but it can also be, and I never mentioned this, a safety car, which critically, safety car is in this lap, and now Jeremy becomes the effective safety car. As you can see, he's holding up the pack. He will pounce when he's ready, and it looks to be, is he ready to pounce? He holds back just a little bit. He's got to make it clear when he wants to go. He can leave this fairly late, but he's got to do it and catch the McLaren off guard. As he goes, and he has caught Fionn a little bit napping, but not too much because Fionn is right on the rear end, and the Mercedes can't capitalize on it as well, as there's no major changes except for Kinty and Alex Beery, who are going side by side with each other. They're trying to trade positions, but it's going to be a case of Kinty holding position and Alex Beery failing to capitalize off the safety car restart, and actually, that was pretty clean for a restart.
It was pretty clean indeed. We've now got some racy drivers at the back of the field in particular with those soft tyres on in particular. Have a look at Elliott here, right on the back of Ali Finn in the Aston Martin with those soft tyres on. Is there going to be a move to the inside here in this hairpin? No, not this time, but that car consistently following around for the whole of this lap so far within 1 or 2 tenths of a second. I think that it's only a matter of time here before they get back into the points. We've then got, of course, Vincent Nyquist here further up the order, right on the back of the Mercedes. That Mercedes, which is losing time to the 2 leading cars. They are now down to about 6.5, 7 tenths of a second. It's all very close indeed, but the further and further they get away, the more likely it is that DRS will not be available for them on the 3rd lap of racing, because of course with a full safety car, it's not like the virtual safety car earlier on where DRS was re-enabled immediately, and there we go. Vincent going round the outside, using a bit of VRS to overtake, and now they go up into the position. They move to the inside to defend that position, which I don't think they really needed to do. That's going to compromise them now, and now the Mercedes is going to be in the driving seat, pardon the pun. They are now going to be able to power on down this start-finish straight. They're going to get that brilliant slipstream here. If they use the overtake button as well, which they're not doing, then they might have had a chance here into turn 1, but no more. Instead, the Mercedes goes over those curbs in turn 1 and doesn't threaten the McLaren at all.
So, the championship spice gets a bit more spicier. Fionn has his rival right behind him, but Vincent now has to make up that little bit of lost ground of being stuck behind Momentum, of which, let's not doubt, Momentum's done a brilliant job today. He has been a very strong competitor, but not against the Champion 2, who have been even stronger, working their way through the field. They started quite far down. They started, I think, in like P6, P7. They're now up to P2 and P3, so a hard work for the 2 McLarens, and now they eye up Jeremy, who's been leading this race since the start, may I point out. But since the start, Jeremy's been having a 2-second gap, comfortable, managing his tyres, now has the threat of Fionn right behind him, so it's turned things around. The safety car has opened up this new opportunity, this new dynamic to this race.
Absolutely it has, and crucially the difference this time versus last time, of course, is that with our leader, they have not bounded away like a gazelle on the plains or some, I don't know, animal metaphor. It did not. But yeah, Jeremy Glinner then sets a new fastest lap, but it's not enough to get them away
Vincent's
from
out of DRS. Vincent's out of DRS.
They are, but crucially, there's a driver who has made a mistake, and that is Maceo. Maceo once again in the wars here, in the wall in particular, and they go off the circuit again. They go all the way off this spun round, and now the rest of the field is starting to come through. Don't rejoin now, Maceo. Just wait. There we go. They're going to allow the field pass, so all of that hullabaloo that happened during the safety car period with them getting tangled up with other drivers, all for naught in the end. And that's unfortunate, not just for them, but also for the drivers that were involved in that incident as well. I'd imagine at this point, Mesa might well throw in the towel. We've got less than 10 laps to go. They're now a lap down once again. And so unlikely they're going to be able to get themselves into any competitive order here, as they're then lapped by Joris in the Williams, who goes on past. But now, looking again at this fight at the front, Vincent has been able to claw back the time that they had lost initially. They'd lost that DRS. They're now back within it again, and it will be the end of this lap. And the start of the next is when DRS will be oh no, I lie, it's re-enabled already. So it's open there on the back of the McLarens, and they chase on after Jeremy Glinner here, trying to get close enough to exercise a move. Now into the final turn they go. This then is the crucial area. This is the point where they need to get as good an exit as possible, and then Vincent will try, Jeremy rather, will try and bound away from the McLarens, but now with a gap of 4.5 tenths of a second, this is something that can be a threat. Down in towards turn number 1, there's not enough overspeed, not enough delta between the two of them. There's a bit of a lockup on the Red Bull, and then through the first turn they go. Then they've been able to lose a bit of time there. It's now about 3.5 tenths of a second between them and Fionn McKee behind.
Critically to note, Vincent used quite a lot of ERS. He's now down to half of his ERS. Same with Fionn. They're both roughly about the 45% mark. So they both can fight each other at the same level. I didn't get to catch Jeremy's ERS. I don't know if you're able to give me that number while I make...
75%.
75, so critically, Jeremy's in a position where he could pull away when he's ready. So he's just waiting for the moment. He's going to wait for Fionn to make a mistake. And if he stores that ERS correctly, he can pounce and pull away, create that 1 second gap. And that will allow him to then make inroads elsewhere, while Fionn then struggles with the championship contender right behind him. And it looks like, from the way these two have been driving, the way the two McLarens have been driving, I don't think anyone's going to be making mistakes. But Memento, hello, he's crawled back, and he's crawled in saying, you know what, you overtook me earlier, now I'm coming to fight back, and I'm going to get re-involved with this championship. Poor start off the safety car, but I'm here once again.
Yes, indeed. It's all going to be very close. I have a feeling that for Vincent and Memento, there's not really going to be much opportunity here because of the DRS train. And yep, into turn 1 we go then. And it is, as it was, a little bit of a lockup for Vincent Nyquist, in fact, on the front right tyre. But not enough to give them a flat spot or any massive tyre degradation. Wheels sort of just slowed down to a point where it almost locked up and was starting to go flat across the circuit. But didn't happen in the end. So through this section then, towards the end of Sector 1 we go, this being an area in particular where track limits can sometimes be a pain, but for all the drivers going through there, it doesn't seem to have caused them any problems, given them any warnings or penalties or anything like that. Vincent then heads down into the hairpin, and behind we are currently looking at Days Rombus in the Alfa Romeo. They have made a good march back up towards the back of this pack as well. They've gotten within DRS of Memento, and crucially they're a good 3 seconds ahead of Norby. Norby, who has been able to keep a hold of their position off of that restart, has been able to hold that position with the hard tyres on, and so towards the end of this stint, don't count them out. They may well be able to get into this fight here towards the top end, might be able to snatch themselves a podium.
The 3 second gap there, it's going to be a struggle. I'm not going to rule it out, but he's going to have to find pace now to do it, because there's only 5 laps remaining. When they cross the line, 5 laps are remaining, so he has to put the metal to the pedal. Otherwise, this is not going to happen. For the front runners, it looks like Fionn is gaining a bit more ground, but it's not going to be enough ground. Or is it? As he looks down the inside, Fionn makes his presence known, but it's not a strong enough presence to put him past the Red Bull, as the Red Bull comfortably says, no, you are not going through. Critically, the top 5 all have potential of winning this race. We are technically going into Phase 3 of this race. Phase 3 is where we're going to see these guys start to squabble just that little bit more to try and gain track position ahead of crossing the line. And this, you just saw Fionn making his first attempt, so that's going to be some ERS lost. And now it's going to be Vincent's turn more likely.
Absolutely, yeah. Phase 3, is that when Thanos shows up on the circuit? Or is it anyway? But yeah, so we've got this battle continuing to plow on then with all these drivers very close to one another. It's getting especially close between the two McLarens. Look at that, 2.5 tenths of a second between now, 3 tenths as they go through some of the tight and twisty bits. But as we get DRS open once again, then Fionn is closing in. Now Fionn, interestingly, down the start finish straight last time around when they got so close that they were able to just throw a tiny one up the inside. They used none of their ERS on that whole run down the start finish straight. So if they use some of that overtake here this time, they may have a chance. Now, this time, they're a bit further back. I don't think even with the ERS, they would be in a position to really challenge this time down into turn 1. And as it is, then down to turn 1 we go, and it's not happening for them. But that is something to bear in mind. Now, the other thing, of course, to bear in mind is that around this circuit, it's very easy to be repassed by DRS, especially if you have a similar pace to the car in front. So it might well be that Fionn knows that they can get this close as we see this battle between Daniel Rocker and Norby there, with Haas being able to slot up the inside into turn 4. Brilliant bit of move from them there, capitalizing on the Ferrari's hard tyres and lack of DRS. Of course, big slide there for Alex Berry behind, so they lose a bit of time there as well. But yes, as I say, for those in the top end, it may well be that Fionn, now having tested the limits, having seen how quick they can get without using ERS, is now just biding their time, waiting until the end of lap 24, start of lap 25, and then we'll go for the move at that particular point. Then hoping they can then just hang on through the rest of the lap with all the DRS sections there, and then get themselves up into P1 for the end of this race. It is all going to come down, I suspect, to this final lap in a few laps' time.
100% is going to come down to the final. Really needs again to also put his foot down. It stays Rumbus in P5. Yes, it's a good position for him, but critically, he needs to stay within the rear end. And through the first and third sector, he's losing out on critical time. He's dropping back, not where he wants to be. So he needs to really put the pedal to the metal and close up. And he's done a better job this time. He's 6 tenths behind, where much like Momentum. So he's not within like the top 3 who are getting within 3 tenths and then heavily braking into turn 1 and potentially looking to make moves. But he's in a better position now. But if you want to fight chance, you've got to do it, as again, Norby is going to be fighting. It's going to be 3 abreast going into turn 4. This is going to be a very dangerous move, as Daniel Rocker is going to be in danger of the Alpine of Alex Berry. Alex Berry has to slot in behind, and that got all too close, and yeah, that could have ended up in disaster, but well done Norby for regaining the position and finding the pace that he needed, and I think Kinty has spun and has dropped a few positions himself.
Yeah, I would say that having been on board with Norby throughout all of that, prior to the broadcast switching over to them, I would say
Vincent's
maybe
getting really close.
Well.
Vincent's going for a move.
This...
I'm so sorry. Vincent is going to try it down the midsection. He's going to go side by side with Fionn and is going to critically make the move into the braking zone. Wow, that is an unlikely spot to overtake, and Vincent pulls out the pace, but Jeremy has a 1.2 second lead because of Vincent's attempt.
Absolutely, yeah. The two McLarens now then on reduced DRS levels, though much more so for Vincent than for Fionn. A difference in Fionn's benefit here of around about sort of 15%, I should say. And this is then really where they need to press that advantage. You can see that flashing red light on the back of Vincent Nightfist's car. That means that they have less than 10% ERS remaining, so it's an even bigger gulf between the two of them now, and this then is going to be about recovery now for Fionn McKee, trying to then get points over their championship rival. We've seen all season long they can run very close to one another, have similar pace, but now it seems that Vincent is just trying to pull out all of the stops on this lap, trying to pull out that second that they need to then be protected from the DRS, and they have done so. Fionn is not making use of that ERS. They are now as they head down towards the hairpin, but I feel like this may be too little too late on their part, because Vincent is just continuing to march. When that's Jeremy Glinner round!
Oh, no!
Jeremy Glinner is round in the hairpin. They've made a mistake all on their own. They had it all in their benefit, in their favour. And now, this fight between the McLarens is no longer damage limitation. It is now a fight for the win here and for maximum points. And Fionn is in the driver's seat, you can tell now, because they have much more in the way of ERS. They have the DRS as well. They're within a second. They're getting within now 2 tenths of a second nearly. 3.5 tenths as they go through the twisty bits. But now, headed down towards this final turn then. This is where all of that mistakes that we may have thought it be the last lap or so when they lost the position is now going to come back to them. Look at this, up the the inside into the final turn. They will now not have DRS going down the start-finish straight, but that may not matter because Vincent Nyquist has not very much in the way of ERS themselves, but neither does the lead McLaren either. So now they're going to go down the start-finish straight. Both of them now pretty much on empty on the ERS, and that means that Vincent Nyquist gets back up in front of Fionn McKee. That means they're now going to go through this final lap then, and it's all going to be down to who can get the better exits out of the corners, who can then make the best use of their cars and their setups, and then crucially, how effective DRS plays a role between these two drivers.
Critically, Memento is also on the rear end of this. He can definitely creep up behind these guys. He's got about 40% ERS. He can choose his move, choose his opportunity, and he could upset the two McLarens right here and right now. Also, Days Rumbers, put your foot down. There's a podium here for you. There's an opportunity to gain massive amount of points. The best points finish for Days Rumbers in P4 is critically here. But we stay with Memento. We wait for what he can do. He has the advantage here. This is all in his favor and in his corner. Going through the second sector, going through the DRS zone. Has any of these drivers got anything left? Momentum closes down the gap through to the end of the second DRS zone. Now he will make his move. Now he will line up the first McLaren of Fionn. He's going to go round the outside of Fionn. Could he make it too? He's going to try it, but he ain't going to succeed on the first one. Get a good exit. It's going to be a drag race right to the end, as it will be. It might be Momentum. Wow!
Memento using their ERS right at the end there. There was nothing left in the McLarens. They both had 1%. It was done. The Memento does a Valtteri Bottas and manages to come out the final corner and overtake two McLarens in order to get the win. Vincent Nyquist crucially finishes ahead of their teammate and championship rival Fionn McKee, so they will gain a couple more points on them in this championship. And Days Rhombus was just that little bit too far back in order to really take advantage and get themselves onto the podium. Still a season best result for them. Jeremy Gallina manages to recover to P5 on a day that should have been theirs. And the McLaren so focused with one another and fighting one another for this win, for this championship, both lose out to the silver arrow of Memento.
What was that, Memento? What a move! The final lap glory comes into his favour, and I told you on that last lap, do not rule him out because he had the advantage. The chessboard played in his favour. He waited to the last second to pull out a masterclass that I am so glad I was a part of. Vincent Nyquist finished ahead of Fionn McKee. Days Rumbus with his best points finish in P4, only 4/10 behind that colossal battle. Jeremy, unfortunately, after leading this race the entirety, falls down in P5. Daniel Rocker does stay ahead of Norby after Norby doing a lot of brilliant work, getting P7s. Alex Beery in P8. Ali Finn, in P9. Brilliant position for him and for a first appearance to my knowledge. And Elliot, our tier coordinator, nearly a lap down, will cross the line, gaining the final points as he will cross the line right now. But wow, I am 100% clipping that, and that's going on social media.
That was incredible. It was just... It's that power of the ERS. You can't discount it at all. An extra 160 brake horsepower available to the drivers to use when they please around the lap. And as it was there, Memento stored up about 40% of their battery for just those that last DRS straight and then the last corner exit as well. And yeah, it looked like it was going to be both of them into the final turn. Turned out just to be Fionn, and then on exit, on traction, using that ERS, just able to blast past the other McLaren and finish about 0.08 of a second ahead. That was some absolutely fantastic racing there, and some great strategy as well, because that whole time as well, they would have known the McLarens are lacking in ERS because they had that great big flashing red light, which, as we say, indicates they have less than 10% of their ERS remaining. So in that scenario, that just gives you all of the confidence in the world to just go full send and get yourself up the inside. So brilliant bit of strategic genius there from Memento. Unfortunate for Days Rhombus because they were in a very similar position, just one car behind, but there's only so many places on a circuit. So in terms of that rundown then, it is, as I say, Memento, Vincent Nyquist, Fionn McKee, Dace Rhombus, Jeremy Glinner, Daniel Rocker, Norby, Alex Berry, Ali Finn, Elliot, Kinty, Joris, Maceo, Alexander Johansson, Nicholas, Joe Van Bussel, Yannick, Dimitri Minic, Robert Dinulescu, and technically, for about 30 seconds worth of appearance, I had a DNF in that race. So there we go.
He made his appearance. F1 debut goes to our brilliant, I think, oh, your camera's dead. Should definitely go for you, MVP, for sure.
we can, the camera's dead and it's definitely not going to allow me to stream again on this connection. The upload speed is far too terrible. So we can imagine just imagine my face, but sort of in a smiling Jeremy Clarkson smug face way.
I can imagine that. I can imagine that, you know, just get in. We should make sure. I'm gonna make sure Elliot puts your name in the driver standings, just as recognition that you started a race.
That's going to be horrible because my name's going to be next to Haas as well, and nothing against Haas, but their car sounds and looks terrible to me. So that's. But there we go. Yeah, can you tell I'm not a fan of the Ferrari engine? But there we go. Yes. So any final closing thoughts from you there, Reese?
What? How do you close that? Honestly, such a brilliant race and kept us all on edge, and I can't wait to see what we do in Kota, because that is gonna be a masterclass. If we're still getting the level of racing these guys keep producing week in and week out, I am so glad to be back and my voice is at 100%. Wow.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to have you back. It's been a great race. Hopefully, in the last 2 rounds of the season, where the championship is now really hotting up, and we've got very few points between them. It was only 6 points going into this round, and it'll be even less now. The fight is definitely on between the 2 McLaren drivers. We will see you then, and give us a subscribe on the PSGL channel here to keep up to date with all of that and all the racing in the other tiers as well. But for us, that has been us today. I've been Daniel Gilligan, joined by Reese Gregory. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, everybody.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega and Grid Rival, proudly supporting PSGL.